Good morning. There I am. Hi, I'm Steve Weber. I am the host of the American Gumption Morning Show, and welcome to the new week. I did not do a live broadcast yesterday on President's Day because I was still away for the weekend, but I'm back now. So we got live shows coming up Tuesday through Friday this week. So today I have a very special guest, Sylvia Lafair, and she will join us, and she is going to talk about how to have less stress in your life. And she's developed a stress test. I've taken it. It's a very fun, easy test to take, and then she's got a course that she's offering. So we'll talk to Sylvia about stress. If you have stress in your life, Sylvia is going to help us out here in just about 15 minutes from now. Alrighty, and I also have a monologue, and I'm going to talk about taming the voice inside of your head. And I started it out by thinking about how did I manage my own stress when I began awakening, transforming my life back in 2009. And I was calling it managing stress. What was I doing to learn to manage it? And I realized that it really is all about, for me, at least the beginning of it was all about managing that voice inside of our head. Or inside my head, but we all have the voice inside of our head. So I'll do that monologue coming up. We also have Brandon Schaefer. It's Tuesday, so he'll do his simple motivation segment right before Sylvia comes on at about 15 past. So we'll have Brandon here probably about 13 past the hour. Now, what's going to happen the rest of the week? On Wednesday, Rebecca Glensky-Kopich will join us. She is the author of the brand new book, 100 Days to Self-Love, 100 Days to Self-Love. So that'll be tomorrow. We're also going to have a mini segment, the Fitness Misfit segment with our own Stacy Redfield. She joins us, and she's gonna bust apart some myths around fitness. So she's got a whole list of them, but she's got a couple that are the important ones that she says are myths about fitness. So she'll share that with us during the second 15 minutes of tomorrow's program. And then after that, we have Rebecca Glensky-Kopich, 100 Days to Self-Love. On Thursday, we have a brand new regular segment. We're going to test it out for a couple months. Serenity Sam, the sing-a-song. Serenity Sam, sing-a-song. So that's coming up, and that'll be in the second 15 minutes of the program on Thursday. And then on Friday, we have Jay Tues joining us. He is the CEO of BioRoot Energy, and they are turning waste carbons into fuel alcohols. This could be a game changer in terms of in terms of energy for our world, really. So we'll talk to Jay about that on Friday. So we'll get back into the environmental issues on Friday. Alrighty. So again, we'll get to Sylvia in just a few minutes here. But first, let me go ahead and shift gears and tell you about that voice inside of my head. I'll tell you about the voice inside my head. You've got your own voice inside your head that, maybe this will be something that'll help you, and maybe what Sylvia talks about will help us with that, or help you with that as far as getting that voice tamed. Alrighty, so 2009 was my year of awakening. Now, up until just a few weeks ago, I was calling it my year of transformation. And what I realized is that I've had many years of transformation since 2009. Every year has been a year of transformation. So 2009 was my first year of transformation, but it really was my year of awakening. And that was the year that I realized that life couldn't go on the way it had been for the first 50 or so years of my life, and I needed to make some changes. And so it's really all about that. And as I was thinking about, Sylvia and her, her idea of stress management, I thought, what did I do? What did I do to change the stress in my life? And I thought a little bit about it, and really it was in 2009 was when it started to, everything's changed. That was the year of awakening and the first year of transformation. And it really, for me, the stress thing really came down to that voice inside of my head that, what happened was I became aware of it in a way that I've never been aware of it before. I started paying attention to it, and I really brought it to a consciousness level. Prior to that, it was just yammering away all the time. And I was I mean, I was just kind of unaware of it. It was like part of who I was and part of like what was going on and running those subconscious programs that we all have playing inside. And I certainly had playing in my life. And they were really a lot, they were causing the same patterns to repeat themselves and the same frustrations to show up over and over again. And consequently, that led to a certain level of stress. So I started paying attention to it and what it was saying to me. And the name I gave it at that time was It. And that was part of the group that I had been doing personal development with, and that's what they called it. So I called it the It. It was, what's it saying to you? And other names are a monkey mind, or Freud called it the id. So it's, it's got lots of different names. You can name it anything you want. But for me, I called it at the time. And I don't really have a better name for it today, other than that voice inside my head. So the very first thing I learned is that you can't silence it. It's going to go on. But so really you have to learn how to live with it. And, you start paying attention to what it's saying and really actually listening to what it's saying. And boy, some of the things it says aren't very nice. It calls you dummy and stupid, and it's reprimanding you, and it's, shaming you, and lots of shouldas and couldas. And, it says all those things. And so in learning to pay attention to it and learning to live with it, I remember there was a couple phrases that I learned that were helpful. And one of them was, thank you for sharing. Oh, like you kind of actually you literally start talking to yourself and you say, well, okay, thank you for sharing that. And you move on and you just acknowledge that it said it, but you don't judge it and you don't argue with it. You just sort of say, okay, thank you for sharing, and move on with it. So the other thing that happened at that time was I started living in silence more. Now, silence, like physically silence from the environment. Up until that point in my life, I always had background music, radio played all the time, and so it was always there. And I started shutting it off, and I didn't do it for like all the time, but I did it for periods at a time. That's sort of how I broke into it. But I literally had the stuff going on in the background all the time. And for the first time in my life, I became aware of like the sound of silence, and how that was helpful to me. And it was helpful because I was able to hear the voice inside my head a lot better when there wasn't like other voices, other noise going on. So the radio playing or a TV playing, that sort of thing. I subsequently have given up TV completely about 4 years ago. And it's not that I don't ever watch TV, but very rarely do I watch it. And I just don't have an attention span any longer for it. And, if there's something that's very interesting, I'm certainly, but for the most part, I've kind of lost interest with it. So no more TV, and radio kind of minimal. When I'm driving in a car, sometimes I listen to the radio a bit, but at home, not too much anymore. All right. So that outside noise that I was listening to, the radio and TV, the voice inside my head would run rampant while that was going on. And I couldn't even hear that voice. I didn't notice that voice. So when I actually, and that voice was talking nonstop the whole time, and it was saying things that weren't helpful. I came to realize that. So by turning that down, other outside noise, I was able to like turn up the volume in my head to the degree that I was able to notice it and pay attention to it, and then consequently learn to live with it a little bit better. When there was silence externally, okay, I'm going to repeat myself here. I already said that, when there was silence externally, like from these other outside forces, that voice inside my head became more noticeable, and then you could again learn to live with it. So, again, thank you for sharing. That's an interesting perspective, but I choose to believe differently. You don't want to argue with it, but you just sort of acknowledge it and then, let it go away. And what I wrote about last weekend on the Gump Date, the weekly Gump Date at AmericanGumption.com. Please sign up. You'll get a Sunday kind of update of the shows and things. The main thing I was thinking about, it was, I talked quite a bit about the ego, and really that voice is really the ego that talks to us. And that's what I wrote about this past weekend. All right. So today, as I go forward, I noticed also a breathing practice that has come into my life. Lots of breathing, lots of like, just slowing things down, and that's part of a meditation practice that is ongoing and developing. But the last couple of years, I've really entered into that part of bringing a regular meditation and making that work for me. So, and breathing was really a part of that. But even back, 10 years ago when I started, I would notice that I like the deeper breaths you take, it kind of calms you and slows you down. And again, that's just all learning to live with things. So, all righty. Now, going to shift gears just a little bit before we bring Brandon. If he shows up, he may or may not, and then Sylvia in just another couple of minutes. Let's see. I want to show you this here is the, that's not what I wanted. There we go. This one. So Sylvia has the quiz, and I'm going to add that to the notes right now. I'll put that in a comment section. All right. So that has been added. There you go. You can just click on this link below, bit.ly/fun stress quiz, and you can take her quiz. And I took it, and it's, it was great because it's already providing me with ideas on how I can continue my transformation and lowering my stress. Just by taking the test, I was able to become aware of some of the things that go on in my life. And so anyway, we'll talk about that with her. But I do want to say about the quiz, the questions were quite brilliant in that they were very nicely worded degrees of difference and distinction. And a lot of times you take a quiz, like a profile test, and it's like, do you strongly agree or do you strongly disagree? With neutral in the middle, somewhat disagree. So, that's like kind of that certainly works, but it's kind of, as I took Sylvia's test, I realized that that there's somewhat and strongly and equally, it's kind of a lazy person's way out as far as like creating a test. Sylvia's test had these brilliantly worded questions that allowed you to think about, a degree of what, what kind of stress you might have in your life. It's not all about stress. It's just about, questions about the way you live your life and the way you think about things, the way you feel about things. And so the way the questions were worded, I was able to, pretty accurately pinpoint which particular feeling was most closely aligned with me. Now, I also had to be aware of the idea that some of the answers like were ones that I aspire to, as opposed to where I'm currently at today. And so I tried to answer accurately where I am currently today, as opposed to an awareness of what I'm aspiring to go to. So I'm kind of, it was like kind of a, you're splitting the difference in terms of what is the right answer. But anyway, there were 30 questions. Just go ahead and do it. It takes about 7 minutes to, I think about maybe, 20 seconds per question, or maybe 30 seconds, just to read through it and think about it and answer it. So it goes fast. And anyway, there was you get an instant result right there, then and there. So that was a fun thing to do. And so we're going to talk about that just as soon as she joins us. Now, Brandon normally joins us today, and we messaged each other earlier, and he said if he wasn't there by 13 after, that he was delayed in a meeting and he wasn't going to be able to make it. So I'm thinking he's probably not going to be able to make it today. So we'll just save Brandon for next week. And Brandon Schaefer, simplebusinesshelp.com, joins us regularly on Tuesdays, but unable to make it today. That's okay. He got tied up in a meeting, and he'll be with us next week, I'm sure. So let's go ahead and shift gears one more time and bring on our guest, Sylvia Lafair. I see she's joined us in the green room. Let's bring her on live. Hello, Sylvia. How are you this morning? Whoops, we got your we got you muted here. Let's see. You are muted. There she is.
There we go.
Good morning, Sylvia. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good. I'm glad to have you here with us. Well, we're going to get into the quiz and talk about it some more. And but here we have two rules when people join us on the American Gumption Morning Show for the first time. And those rules are: I like to read an intro, a bio on who they are, and then I have a song, a welcoming song that is the first time. Coincidentally, it's called the first time guest welcoming song. So,
Okay.
so
Ready?
are you willing to go along with those rules? We have very tough rules here, Sylvia. All righty, let me tell people who you are. So Sylvia Lafair, PhD, is the CEO of Creative Energy Options. She is a top global leadership guru, executive coach, business consultant, and award-winning author. Sylvia provides executives and entrepreneurs coaching and programs to build strong interpersonal communication skills. These skills will help increase team effectiveness and enable rapid growth. Boy, if you just do a little bit of coaching and you can make the team more effective and enable rapid growth, you're worth every penny of it. Excellent. We love that. So now, who was Sylvia? She was a curious kid searching for answers, was embedded in her DNA. She was fascinated watching how often people would make the same mistakes and complain about the same upsets time after time. I noticed people in my family who did that occasionally too, Sylvia. She observed it in family, neighbors, and at school. She even saw it in books and films. Brilliant, brilliant. You were a curious kid. Searching for answers became Sylvia's passion. She became determined to find ways to transform outdated, ingrained patterns that destroy health and the joy of success. Sylvia has a brand new stress test that you can take for free and a follow-up course that's designed to help you improve the quality of your life by better managing stress, or how to practice safe stress. She calls it the Sanity Challenge. So Sylvia Lafair, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
Well, thank you. And you captured me perfectly.
Yeah, well, good. We went back and forth a little bit, figuring out exactly what we were going to talk about, but we got it. I think we got this figured out in time. So let's play that song, and then after that, we'll get into the conversation. Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a broadcast before, Sylvia?
No, but I'm going to get up every morning and play that now. I love it.
Well, we only allow that for the first time a guest comes on. So if you ever come back, Sylvia, and I know you have a lot to talk about, so if you ever come back, we will not be able to play that song for you again, just because that's the rules of the show.
Okay.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us and getting up early. I know you're on the West Coast, but at least it's not cold where you are. The rest of the country has experienced a bit of a freezing temperatures here. So anyway, welcome.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about the stress test, but tell me about the childhood thing. We all are curious kids, and yet most kids kind of lose that curiosity. Somehow you manage to maintain that. But I remember you said that you noticed like certain things that happened where people would like repeat the same patterns. And I remember, with my own mother, rest her soul, she would talk about certain things like kind of over and over again in terms of, being complaints. And it wasn't like they were bitter or that sort of thing, but they were present. And so anyway, just tell us, what were you like as a kid where you noticed those things? How did it all happen?
Well, I was programmed to be a pleaser, sweet little girl, be good, be
Mhm.
quiet, behave. And I couldn't do it. So I was a rebel and I was always asking questions. And the questions I asked used to annoy people. Why are we doing this? Why isn't that that? And I'd be told, oh, when you get older, go that way, go this way. And I would get in trouble, not terrible trouble, but it was always like, be quiet. And I couldn't be. So there was something in my nature. And as I started to grow up, I found that this happened over and over. And there's one very quick, this is where it began, where I saw little girls as pleasers and, little boys get in trouble because they're not pleasers. I was in a line this must have been second grade. And my girlfriend was two people in front of me and I wanted to talk to her and we were going wherever. So I jumped in front of poor Marvin. Marvin, I'll never forget this. And forgive me, Marvin. I jump in front of Marvin to talk to my friends and the teacher turned around and said, Marvin, stop getting in back of Sylvia. So I said, when I got in front of him, she said, no, stop protecting him. And I was so angry. And I began to see these patterns of I could get away with a lot, partly because of my nature, but partly because I was a little girl and, and the boys were getting in trouble. So that's one thing I started to see, Steve. And it was like, why do we keep doing these things? And I watched that over and over again. And I told this other quick story the other day about in sixth grade, I was vice president of my class. And I was homesick with the flu of the day for almost a week. And I got back to school and my friends ran over and they said, we're impeaching Arnold. Arnold was the president of the class and you're going to become president. I was thrilled. Thought it sounded really good. You could have played Hail to the Chief. I would have liked that. Anyway, I said, so what did he do? And they said, nothing. I said, so why are we impeaching him? And they said, because he's boring. And he was. And you're more fun. And I was. So anyway, we're having a big meeting the next day. I go home and I told my older brother that I'm becoming president of the class. And he said, so what happened? I said, well, Arnold is boring. And he said, Sylvia, you can't impeach somebody because they're boring. There has to be more to it than that. Anyway, we had a big talk about it, and I ended up going to school the next day.
Mm,
And I had to take a stand and say, no, I can't go along with this. So
mm.
I began to see there is a risk for speaking out. There is a risk there. And at that point, anyway, the end story with poor Arnold is we had the meeting and they let him stay president for the rest of the year. But what happened after that is my friends got really mad at me and they wouldn't talk to me for a couple of weeks. They said, you're a turncoat. And it was very frustrating. So I learned early, when you speak out, there's a cost. But I kept doing it anyway.
Yeah.
I
So
had to
here
pay the cost.
you're only if you're sixth grade, you're what, around 11 years old, and
Well,
you
yeah,
already became aware of that, that there's that, if you stand up for what is the right thing, for what is really ultimately a truth, an internal truth, there's consequences to pay. And if we just play along with what people want, we end up, getting along with the group, but we don't necessarily connect with our inner being and our inner soul. So then that becomes the challenge of life, doesn't it?
absolutely. And what we learn, one of the things that I've been teaching for a bazillion years is what we learned in our original organization, which is the family,
Mm-hmm.
is what shows up in our present organization at work.
Mm,
In the original organization, we learned about fairness, we learned about favoritism, we learned about backbiting, we learned about gossip, we learned about what got approved and what didn't. And you go to work, and guess what? I've worked with organizations for years. They come to me and talk about favoritism and backbiting and not being able to speak out. So I started to put that together. It was pretty interesting. And I came up with 13 of the most common patterns that we learned early that show up in work. And that's part of what I'm doing with the Stress Busters program, is putting some of those patterns in there so we can look at them. That makes sense?
yeah, that makes perfect sense. Is it really the law of attraction at play there, where we are our own perspective is seeing in the workplace what we expect to see because of what we had been trained to see from that first business, right? The first environment, the work home environment, or is it like somehow coincidentally like lining up that way? I mean, what do you think is allowing those same issues to keep showing up over and over
Yeah.
again?
I think with neuropsychology, we are learning so much now. Freud, you mentioned the id earlier, and Freud did a brilliant job of taking us down into that unconscious, but it was like this mystical thing. You had
Mm-hmm.
Jiminy Cricket sitting on your shoulder as your conscience, but we're now learning that it's in our nervous system. The old fears are down in our amygdala,
Yep.
and we're learning about that. So what we learned early about safety and security, we take with us for the rest of our lives. And as you were talking about how you began to make changes, and I loved when you talked about the sound of silence. Somebody ought to write a song about that.
Yeah.
But it's in us, and so when we grow up and a situation comes at us that has a familiar ring, we knee jerk respond until we learn to do it differently.
Yeah, it becomes the awakening process is really just becoming aware of what the subconscious program that's running is going on. And it takes a lot of discipline and determination to fight through that, because it's like deep down inside of us in terms of those knee-jerk reactions, as you said.
Well, for me, what's interesting is, why is it I would sit in meetings and somebody would say, I'm making it easy. Tomorrow is Wednesday. And you think, God, that's great. It really is. I'm glad they said that. And 2 minutes later, somebody on the other side of the room will say, tomorrow is Wednesday. And you think, he's such a jerk. What does he know?
Mm.
So, what is it that creates variations on the same thing and yet we react differently? That's part of what you're talking about, is learning to observe, where did that come from? Maybe the guy who was the jerk reminds you of your brother or your sister, and you're responding to that rather than simply what the person is saying.
Uh, Before we get a little more deeply into the stress test, what was your PhD, and what did you when did that happen? Did you go right after your bachelor's degree and get an advanced degree, or and do some? And what did you do your studies in? I mean, how did this the training happen for you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, well, it was in clinical psychology, and my background is as a family therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in high school and they said, what do you want to do? I wrote down psychologist, and I had to look up how to even spell it with the PS instead of so I knew that I was going to do it. And I think a lot of times we develop what we're going to do from whatever happened in our lives. And my father died suddenly of a heart attack when I was 14, and left my mother, my brother, and I kind of in shambles. And we didn't get the kind of help I wish we had. So as I grew up, it was like, what kind of help do people really need? And working with the family for me was the most powerful way of working, because you worked with all the actors in their own play. rather than just one-on-one and talking about it, it was kind of like I'd have everybody in the room, and I was like the orchestra leader, having them talk to each other and really go down and look at what was going on. And, I watched how different families handled stress. It was very interesting. And so I got to the place where I figured, okay, there are those who learn how to shout it out. That was me. And there are those who learn how to stuff it down.
Mm.
And as we moved into COVID, and all the calls I'd be getting were about, how do I handle stress? I'm on too much stress. I don't know what to do. My kids are driving me crazy. My Zoom is driving me crazy. What are we on?
StreamYard.
StreamYard is driving me crazy.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so I began to really look at how I could be of service with this vertical area of stress, which obviously is not so vertical. It touches everything we do. But so I became a family therapist, and then the quick fun story is that we were doing a program for adolescents, parents of adolescents, and the kids whose kids were driving them nuts. And at the end of it, a man walked up to me. I thought he was going to say something about one of his children, and he said, "Will you come work with my senior leadership team?" And I said,
Mhm.
"Why?" And he said, "They're fighting." And I said, "So what?" So he said, "But Sylvia, you work with people who have to get along, families. They have to get along." Made sense. So I went in and, saying it kindly, I taught them how to play nicely in the sandbox. And they really became a cohesive team. And it
Mhm.
was one of those, he told a friend who told a friend who told a friend. And all of a sudden I went, oh, for crying out loud, all my work is now with business people rather than families.
That's fascinating. You were doing family practice therapy, and then you transformed into the business. How long ago did that happen? Kind of roughly when that when you shifted that? Because I in the research I didn't even realize any of the family practice part was part of it.
Yeah. Oh, that was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those. It was very interesting because now in the business world, they're accepting the soft stuff
Yeah.
better. When I first went in, it was like, oh my God, here she comes. But when there was a lot of conflict, they used to call me the roto-rooter woman because I had to come in and get all the stuff cleaned out that was leaving all the junk on the floor. So
There was one story I read about on your website or somehow that somebody had hired you and you were doing the work, but you ended up like telling his team, well, we'll fight back. And go, oh, I know, it was the guy who kept buying businesses, and you told this team, well, we'll tell him you're not going to do that, and then they tell him we're not going to do that, and he says, Sylvia, why did I hire you?
I had that happen. I've had that happen a lot. But we have, again, you talk about these conditioned responses, and a lot of people learned as children, you don't talk back to your parents.
Mm.
Not that you should be disrespectful, but you should be questioning and saying, I don't agree and why. And so I tend to get people in the workplace to say, hey, wait a minute. You may be my boss or the director or the VP, but I need to understand what's going on and why. And
Yeah.
it can get noisy.
And the brilliant thing about that particular story was that he came back and said, "Oh my God, no one ever told me this before. I just didn't know. He was unaware. Because he was doing a behavior that was deemed acceptable by everybody up until that point, but it was driving them crazy. And so anyway, it was a great story because
Yeah.
he transformed almost right there instantly on the spot.
He did. Every once in a while, I talk with him. He said, I'm thinking of buying another business. And I go, who are you going to consult to see who's going to run it? Because the gal who said no became, a hero in the whole company. So he had to be reminded. But the patterns are, these behavior patterns are, deeply embedded, and we all have them. You know, if you're alive and breathing, you've got these patterns, and you need to be able to learn about them.
I love when people are, and lots of people are aware enough and are open to suggestions and coaching and ideas, but they do need to be told. And so that's the brilliance of what you do as an outsider coming in. You can just sort of see this objectively without being caught up in it all, and without the emotions of like we have to please somebody. And isn't it wonderful when you can, just say something, and when a person hears something, they instantly can transform if they're open and if they're ready to, hear it. So those magic moments do happen quite a bit.
They're wonderful.
Yeah.
Although I must say, Steve, that the part of what we teach is called the out technique. And out means you observe, which you talked about earlier. We have we go like this, observing. You have to get above yourself and look down at your behavior. And then you go do a deep dive to understand, where did this start? How did it happen? How did I become somebody who likes him and doesn't like the other guy over there? Where is that about? And the transformation part takes some heavy lifting, because, you know, you can't do it once and say it's going to be forever. It's like anything else. To break a habit, you've got to uh, work at it. But
Yeah.
it's doable. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I've been at this awakening and transformation process
Mm.
for about 10 years, and it's just like there's always another layer. And fortunately, they become easier, and yet there's still like a certain amount of resistance each and every time to, peeling back like a new layer. But those first couple of years, it was like cracking an egg in terms of, there was a hard shell that had to get through. And then
Yeah.
once you get down a little deeper, it becomes easier. But still, each and every time, each and every new layer, there's still work involved, and they all resemble each other. Like it's like the same problem or the same thing, kind of like revealing itself in a slightly different way each and every time.
Well, here's what I've learned is that in the beginning, it takes quite a bit of time to think it through, say, where did this happen? Why is it? Once you get that underhand, the same pattern can come at you and you can kind of go like, I don't know what's happening, but it doesn't take as much time.
Yeah, that's fair. So let's go ahead and like shift into the idea of the stress test, and let me throw up the one banner that talks about what you're here. I think this is it. There we go. So people, and I put this in the comments already. So it says, "What's your stress personality type? Take the Stress Busters quiz to find out." And there's the bit.ly /fun stress quiz that people can click on, and it's quite brilliant the way you designed it and worded. It's 30 questions, but each and there's like 5 choices each time, and they kind of range from strongly agree to strongly disagree. But I really like the way you worded the questions. You didn't just like ask a question and agree or disagree or strongly or slightly disagree. How did you think about that? I mean, tell us about the design of this quiz, because it wasn't something you threw together in an afternoon.
Maybe. Yeah, never know.
All right.
Well, it is the culmination. It's interesting because I was working on my Gutsy Women Lead program and my Total Leadership Connections program for men and women. And as COVID came in, I decided everybody was calling about stress. So I thought, okay, let me begin to look at that more deeply. So I did more research, and some of it, honestly, I did for myself. I learned a lot as I was pulling the Stress Busters program together. And
Yeah.
part of it was saying, well, how do different people react to stress, and how would they even react to the questions? So I worded them in ways that it's a weighted quiz, so you can't scam it. I mean, a lot of people take quizzes saying, well, if I answer that, I'll get this kind of answer. You couldn't do that here because I was really looking at getting underneath the obvious, if you will.
Yeah, well, you did a good job. And did you have to have some? And we don't have to talk too much about this, but from a technical point of view, I mean, the algorithm to calculate it. Did you do that, or did somebody who knew how to kind of create an algorithm, do that for you? Again, I don't want to go too much into it. Just generally address that because it is quite fascinating the way it works.
Yeah, there's a company. They're based in I can't remember if it's Germany or somewhere in Europe. It's called
Okay.
Riddle, Riddle, and they do the algorithm. No,
Great.
that's not my cup of tea.
Right. So anyway, well, very good. So I took the quiz. Let me do a screen share. Let's see here. And I'm going to show you what I received as the answer. So here, I'll put myself back up there. And so it said, I'm fine, except when I'm not. And in my monologue, I talked about having enough awareness to try to not give the answer of what I'm striving for to be, but rather where I am today. And so sometimes I was pretty strong, like in terms of doing pretty good. And so other times I was kind of more in the middle section. I almost always had like a certain awareness going on. Anyway, this was the answer that came up for me. I'm fine, except for when I'm not.
Good. So
Yeah.
that's you. You're fine, except when you're not. And we all have these when I'm not times. It's very interesting because I'm pretty conscious of this kind of thing with stress. And as I said, we will go back to old patterns. What we can do now is we can look at it more quickly and transform it faster. So that's and when I'm not. So you're pretty good. That's great. You're handling stress.
Talk about some of the other results that people might get that they would really benefit from taking the sanity challenge. So give us kind of more of the full range. I wanted to share what I did, and I did share it out to my Facebook page. But tell us about some of the other ranges that people might land in.
Well, some people are very prone to shut down when stress is there, and no matter what, they have learned don't rock the boat. Those old things. I'm saying, well, why not? But that's me. That's you. But it's don't rock the boat and be quiet. And it's really a security, safety kind of thing that people learned. Probably as kids, they got smacked a lot when they opened their mouths. And you really learn to scoot away and hide under the table. And in other families, they learn to shout it out to be heard. And so it's kind of, I don't want to go into the quiz too much because I want people to take it without any preconceived notions about it, if that's okay with you. And
Sure.
We can talk about some of the patterns. That's great. But let me throw in about this sanity challenge. So I have a friend who works in at NBC. And when I told her I'm going to do this stuff about stress, she said, Sylvia, it's not even stress. People are saying they think they're losing their minds. They're talking about their sanity. She said, so put something in about sanity. So I thought, okay, how many times you say, I'm going crazy? It's just a thing we say. I'm going nuts. And so the sanity challenge is a 7-day, maybe 10 minutes max a day that you take to do something so you can begin to see how to harness your stress. It's almost like a wild horse, and you're getting on to ride it, and you have the reins, and you have to learn how to. I rode a horse when I was a kid, not in a long time, but you have to be in charge of where this wild horse is going to get tamed and go. So I put that sanity challenge in, and I even included I've done it a few times. And so one of the things is in the middle of the 7 days is literally to go out, take a walk, and hug a tree. And I'm not talking about, granola crunching, which I like too, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that what we have learned about how we're communing with nature and the energy that trees give us. And so people are saying, Sylvia, I almost got locked up. I was in Central Park and I went and I hugged a tree and somebody said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm just doing my stress thing." So each day you do a thing and then you begin to see which of those things really make a difference. And that would lead into the Stress Busters program, which is really a full-bodied program about stress. And it's very interesting because we ran out when I did the research about having plants. Here's one in here. See it?
Yep.
We went out and bought plants that are really good at keeping the air clean in the house and so forth and so on. That I hadn't thought about it in that respect before, and the right foods to eat. So it's not just the psychological. And you talked about meditation. And for some people, they say, "Oh, I can't meditate. Something's wrong with me." So I put in a whole bunch of other kinds of exercises to help you calm down if meditation isn't your thing. So
Yeah, no, there's and just the whole breathing thing has been so important, to me. And it's just there's so many different things that we can do, and I love that you said there's some things are going to work better for one person and some will work better for another person, and so you're giving enough variety that a person will be able to hopefully decide, well, which two or three or one or two things are best suited for this person.
That's what we did. And then what I have found is people need to hang their thoughts on something comfortable. I don't know if it's comfortable or not, but something familiar. So I have, for those who shout it out, I put in the patterns, the drama queen or king. And Steve, there are plenty of drama kings out there, not just drama queens, who tend to shout it out, and then there are the pleasers who smile and there are plenty of male pleasers too. We say women for the most part, but plenty of male pleasers where you're smiling and saying, "Sure, I'll do it." And inside you're thinking, "Are you out of your mind?" But you do it anyway. It's like the gal who said to her boss, "If you buy another company, we're not doing it."
Right, right.
She found, and these patterns can be transformed. The energy you're using in the patterns, you flip it over, you have the same energy, but you have a better way of doing it. So, there's the drama queen or king, there's the rebel who's always fighting everything. And the rebel has to be very loud and very noisy when stress comes along because they're going to write everything, but they can become community builders. So it's a more healthy way of doing it. And another one for the shouted out type is the persecutor, AKA the bully. And that's somebody who's always pointing their finger at you, and they're loud about it. Well, if you take their hand and point it up, they become great visionaries. They can use that same energy, but say, "Here's where we can go. Here's a way," rather than "It's all your fault." So those are the shouted out types, and the stuff it down types. Of course, I talked about the pleaser, and another one is the procrastinator, who's always saying, "Well, it'll be done tomorrow," and they do it quietly because they don't want to be judged. And they become what we call the realizer. They make it happen. And then, of course, there's the avoider who, when stress comes, they're out of there. The gotta go guy or gal. So the patterns help you begin to see where you fit with a little more, "I'm not alone in this. This is a pattern that lots of people have." And then you can transform it.
I think uh, some work that I had done and had kind of a pretty profound breakthrough moment for myself was the realization that these patterns that you're talking about, maybe like being a shouted out person, the way it was described, or the way I learned it, was that it was kind of like they called it a strong suit. It was kind of like a primary way of being, but I didn't even know that I was behaving that particular way. And so what happened was they like I would default to that way of being. And what happened, that way of being would work, it would work, but it wouldn't work all the time, and it wouldn't work really effectively. And so once I became aware of it, then I had an option to do something different. Like what did you say? Like the person becomes, rather than pointing, the person becomes like a visionary type person. And it's not that hard to be that other way, but you need to first become aware of it. So am I connecting the dots correctly? And that's really what you're doing. Yeah, no,
yep, it's out. Awareness, observe,
right.
Understand, and then transform. I think, do we have time for me to tell a very quick story about the bully boss, the persecutor who transformed?
Absolutely.
Okay. He was a finger pointer. Mm-hmm. And finally, this is a large company. They went to HR and complained. So I get a call. Well, I come in and work with the team. And I go in and I listen to him, and he's moaning and complaining, and he's talking especially about this one gal we'll call Ruth. And he said, she's the problem. I said, really? So I said, what is it about her that makes her the problem? Well, she's opinionated and she always wants her way. I said, gee, it sounds like you. He didn't like it, and he kept looking at the door, and I kept thinking, is he going to tell me go leave? But he stayed with it anyway. We had an offsite meeting, and I really got him to see that he could take this and do that and become a hero to the team. Yeah. And so the first day of the meeting, it was a 3-day meeting. The first day we sat there, and he was very nervous, and he had learned that the boss goes last when you speak in a team. Forgot it all. We start the meeting. He said, Sylvia, I have something to say. I said, too late now. Go ahead. And he said, I want you to know that I know you're all upset with me, and if you don't like it, you can vote with your feet, and there's the door. And then under his breath, he said, because I have powerful people in this company, nothing's going to happen to me. And the room was flat. So that evening was supposed to be a team meeting, and I called it off, and he and I went out to dinner, and I said, excuse me, this is not working. Anything I've taught you isn't working. And he was truly that persecutor, but he got it. And the next day when we went back, he said, Sylvia, I'd like to start the meeting. I thought, this man has learned nothing. Shut up. But anyway, he started talking, and he said, I was wrong yesterday. And I was in my old bully boss way. And he said, I can see where we can go. I'm going to listen today. And it was incredible, because by the end of it, they were great. And by the end of the year, it was a sales team. They were winning awards and getting bonuses, and everybody got promoted from that. But he had to take this and transform from the bully boss, the persecutor, to the visionary. And that's what we do. Yeah.
And it's almost the exact same skill, but it's just, where was he pointing that energy that he had? It wasn't like his energy had to change as much as just the focus of the energy had to change.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, this is great.
Perfect.
It's quite a skill. I mean, it's a talent that you have to be able to see these things, and to be able to know how to navigate through that, even though, you didn't know. I mean, the next morning you didn't know that he had actually navigated into a good spot. You thought like we were going to have another day of misery. So,
well, after that dinner, when I read him the riot act about what he was doing, I hoped it took. But when he said, I want to start the meeting again, I went, oh my God, here we go again. Yeah.
Well, very good. Have you ever had a situation where somebody basically fired you on the spot and sent you away?
No, I haven't.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. Well, oh, there's always a first time. You're in just the last couple of minutes. Let's just remind people to go and take the stress test and then find out what they're doing. Here, let me put this back up here. There we go. So, what is your stress personality type? And I shared that mine is I'm fine except for when I'm not. But there's all different ranges that a person could find. Take it, you'll get an instant result. And the bit.ly.fun stress quiz link is in the show notes. So go ahead, or in the comment section, go ahead and, take that and then find out. And I encourage you to, follow up with Sylvia if it makes sense for you, if it's the type of thing that would be helpful. And yes, there is a lot of stress going on this last year for all of us. And when I asked, did you, you didn't just throw this quiz together. Really, what I'm hearing is that this is the, this thing came about as a result of the last year and the changing, but it's a culmination of your, 30 plus years of work and doing this. It's not like you just made it up. You had all of it, but you pieced it together in a way that you probably hadn't pieced it together before.
Exactly. Well said. Yep.
Well, very good. Very good. What would you like to share with the people in closing? But before you do that, let me just say that you're the author of the book Gutsy, and Gutsy is a synonym. Guts is a synonym for gumption, and so I talk about gumption and guts, and it's really the book itself talks about the different ways that.
Let me show you. You'll love it. Can you see the egg all broken open?
Oh yeah. Oh, there's that egg. There's that egg. Yes.
That you talked about earlier. Yep.
Yeah. So maybe in the future sometime we'll have you come back and talk about it. The book's been out for a while, but I think the lessons are timeless. And I would love to go into, more about the different personality profiles and, the ways of being, you focused it for women, but I don't see it being gender specific.
Well, in a sense it is, but I've had a lot of men say, thank you. It's helped me understand my wife, my daughters, my coworkers better. But the other book, the one that has this is the state of the art one, is Don't Bring It to Work.
Okay.
And that one really goes into the work situations and how teams work and how once we learn to really understand each other, there's no stopping us in a positive way. I've seen it over and over and over again.
Yeah, and people want to get along. They just don't have the tools and the skills to navigate some of these like difficult, scenarios where there's a certain personality type with another personality type, and they just don't have the know-how to get through it. And so someone like yourself, or just if they educate themselves by reading your book or other books like that, they can develop those skills. But all that takes time and effort and energy that, we just don't naturally have, or we don't, we're in a place where we aren't able to access that ability without a little bit of help.
Yeah. They should be teaching some of this stuff in school.
Yeah.
That's my passion. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, I think Gutsy is very close to Gumption. So I would love to, in the future, I'd love to talk about that sometime. But we're going to wrap up today. What would you like to share with the audience, and specifically inviting them to come and join you on the Stress Busters quiz?
Yeah, the Stress Busters quiz and the Sanity Challenge, which is, again, a freebie and lots of fun. And the program itself is really worthwhile. If I learned a lot out of it, I'm sure everybody else will too. And that we do need to tame the way we handle stress. And that doesn't mean we go quiet. It means that we learn how to, what we're calling, practice safe stress.
Well, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Sylvia, for joining us this morning. And we appreciate you, and we'll welcome you back in the future.
Oh, and thanks for all your good work, Steve.
All righty. Very good. Well, thank you, Sylvia, for joining us this morning. That was a fun conversation. I knew it was going to be. And one last time, there's the Stress Busters quiz. But in the show, in the comments, it's the bit.ly bit.ly/fun stress quiz is there. Go ahead and take that. And then you can also take the sanity challenge as a follow-up from the quiz itself. All righty. Well, that's that. We'll get out of here. Let me just let you know, tomorrow we're going to, let me change my screen there. There we go. Tomorrow we're going to have Rebecca Glensky-Kopage, the author of 100 Days to Self-Love. It's kind of a follow-up on today, a good segue. More self-love is going to reduce our stress. And Stacy Redfield will join us for her monthly mini segment on the fitness misfit segment, and she's going to bust some myths as far as what are some exercise myths that she, are personal pet peeves for her. So she'll share that tomorrow with us. On Thursday, Serenity Sam has a first time segment that we're going to do every other week for the next couple months. We'll try it out. And it's Serenity Sam's Sing a Song. And then Jay Toops on Friday. And Jay is the CEO of BioRoot Energy. And he has a vision of turning waste carbons into fuel alcohols. The technology is there, but the willingness of our culture and our governments and our politicians and our just the public, it's an awareness thing. Maybe this could happen in our lifetime. So we will see about that. BioRootEnergy.com. Jay Toops on Friday. All right. Have a great day. We will see you tomorrow. Have a nice day, everybody.